We understand a lot more principles now, don't we? We've got this concept of DevOps and how it's going to fit into our Power BI landscape. But that's the key, isn't it? Landscape. Let's review, having looked at DevOps and seen, this is what DevOps means in Power BI. How does it fit into our landscape? And let's look at the whole landscape as well, not just that ETL process that DevOps is going to support. At least that's what we told you. Are we telling the truth? Hi, my name is Ross, the creator and founder of Geordie Consulting and Geordie Intelligence, the YouTube channel you're watching today. At Geordie Intelligence, we like to explore not just how to do something, but most importantly, why. Why is it this way that we do things? Why should you focus on doing something in a particular way? Because with that in mind, that is how you build your standard operating procedures within your organization, and you pick and choose the components of platforms like Power BI and Fabric that will suit your business needs and your requirements. So we looked at DevOps, didn't we? Developer operations, kind of that mindset of bringing together developer structures with IT operations to bring from concept all the way through to production business ideas in a software-centric mindset. And that's the issue, isn't it? It's software-centric, it's developer-focused. Whereas BI and any other platform that we really deploy into an organization isn't just about developers. It has to be accepted by the business. There's more to it. So we recommended that you use DevOps, if that's the route you choose to go down, that you use that in your ETL cycles. So what happens with the rest? Why are we saying this? Let's check through, tick a few boxes in our own little heads, and make sure we're comfortable with it. So let's start here, okay? This is kind of one of those, this is the bit, hopefully it'll make sense now. We're going to start here. We'll try and explain some things to you, some concepts, and you'll go, oh, get it now, okay? Thing number one, okay, let's have a look at this. There was a couple of things that we didn't cover last week, or that we covered and they ended up going on in the cutting room floor. So there's a couple of things I want to just go back over just to make sure that you're all aware of it. So we mentioned one of the things in terms of the workspace settings that we ended up in Git integration. We picked Git integration as opposed to Azure DevOps because we're using Git. We aren't a full Fabric environment. We've said we're not going to do full Fabric until it's really fit for purpose. And I'm going to say that based on when my trial ends. Obviously, I am deploying Fabric for clients. We do know what's going on. It is fit for purpose in a lot of ways, but I'm kind of about it. It's still very much a moving platform. This is what we've got. So we've got a branch that's away from main, and you could pick to say we want to connect to main or to this one. Now, I chose a separate branch because I was thinking, well, if main is going to be where all our development is going to come into, it makes sense to say, well, let's put it somewhere else. Let's say, so there's the act of pushing. You don't need to. You could say, well, we want it straight in there. Okay. The other thing is we've got an account here. We've got an information here for an account. And this is where you could go through, you could add additional accounts, we can manage them. Then you see it's under the gateways area where you find all the connections are. If we scroll down, you'll find, here we go, there's our GitHub source control. And we could go through and we can look at the settings to see what's happening. And it's this GitHub personal access token that you need to generate to make it work. Okay? So that's one of those things that you need to think about. So you build these credential tokens, you put a time frame on them. I think we've just put this up for a month. It's one of those, it's like service principles where you can see it once, and then once it's built, you can't see it again. But it could go through, request a new one, go in, update that. So be aware, you may well come across that a few times as you're going through that, oh, something stopped working, probably, but that's expired. So check GitHub, make sure it's there, come back into here, and you can always check in the gateways, does it still work? Yes, it does. Brilliant. Okay. So that was kind of thing that we didn't touch on. But this is the bit now. This is the one thing, if there's one thing you're going to take from today, this is what I need you to learn. Okay? If we zoom in here, right, and if I'm going to try and remember how to do this. If we look at this, okay? So we have the semantic model and the report, okay? Two different things that exist to build visuals. And this is the problem, one of the biggest issues that Power BI has as a product, as a platform, but also it's one of the biggest saving graces. So I understand exactly why it is this way. And for all I'm using it as a criticism like this, I think it's also one of those things that it's really good, it's fine. The issue and the reason why there's a criticism is people do not understand that the two are different. And they do not understand that the two are different because when you go through into Power BI Desktop, when you open Power BI Desktop, you say, right, I'm going to look at a picture, I'm going to look at a report, or I'm going to start building a report for the first time now. Okay. That report that you build, I'm just reopening our first one, like this is the master file for this. It has visualization content within it. The reality is this is two entirely separate entities. When we go through and we use transform data, okay, we are doing something different. We are no longer dealing with report, we are dealing with semantic model. We need to understand that those two are separate things. And the fact that the primary semantic model will always contain the visualization layer is part of the problem. Okay, there isn't really a way of separating it with Power BI Desktop. You can do it all in code. So if you're in the DevOps mindset, you can write a full model, fully in code, no Power BI Desktop required. You can do that. That's fine. It works. But when you then try and do it with Power BI Desktop, you can't. It doesn't work. Okay, so that's the headache that we've got, that you need to understand these two are different. Once you understand that the two are different, you see why we recommend things in a particular way. So if we go back to Power BI Desktop here and we go into our workspaces, right? Now you can just have a look at our pinned ones that I've got here. Okay, so let's just zoom in a bit. Okay, let's have a look at our pinned. So we've got our dev, test, and prod that we've got for the solution we're working on now. And we've got here a data, a model, and a visualizations, which is what we've got for the previous series we did in terms of the business, where we were looking at parkrun data. And these are two distinctly different ways of working. And this is why it's one of the things where the DevOps lifecycle management and deployment pipelines that are in Power BI potentially don't actually help your business. So, don't help my business? Well, why are we doing them? They do help in terms of they will help you steer and bring data artifacts from one to another environment, if that's the way you want to go. As I say, you can extend a pipeline or deployment pipeline as far as you want. You can bring it down to 2. You know, potentially with this, looking at the way this works, 2 might be the sensible way to go. Might just be to say, well, we're going to have a test and we're going to have a prod. I think 3 makes sense because of the Git sync. So Git synchronizes into dev and then it's handed over to a team who will look and manage it through into production. But the question mark is always going to be, if we went down the route here that we talk about with data, this doesn't fully explain everything. Okay, so if we come and have a look at the data here, okay, we've got the artifacts here. The 2026 ones are the ones that we ended up using after the big upgrade that went through. So we've got 3 data flows, okay, 3 that we need to use. But then we've also got a 4th, and that's not in here. And that's part of the issue. So if we go back to our data here, New York City data, and we have a look at the lineage, here, so we switch view to the lineage view, what you see is an extra flow comes up here. Okay, the calendar. So we've got the calendar existing somewhere else. We've also got a SharePoint link to that spreadsheet, if you remember, the horrible one that does all the data normalization. The normalization spreadsheet could be going into this data flow, be fine, it wouldn't be a problem. We've got it bringing it straight through into the semantic model. It's up to you what you want to do with a solution like that. There is no right and wrong answer intrinsically with it. It would probably be better to bring it into the data flow. As in this case, I wanted to show you what we were doing as we brought it through. So it's in the main Power BI model. But it doesn't need to be. But this is our calendar. This is another thing. So one of the things that we recommend is having data brought through and treating that as a separate way of working or a separate part of the life cycle that you've got within your organization. So the ETL processing that's going to go on for a calendar is going to go on in a separate workspace. We call this data flow workspace data core. So the core data sets that we're going to use, they're going to be used by all the reports across the business. So there's just one come from there. We can also then say, well, if for the sake of argument, we had SAP connected, Oracle with something else, we potentially bring those through as different data entities. We might choose to say, well, we need some processing in Power BI, so we will stand up a workspace for that, and that will come through and flow through a data flow. For us, that's what we're using. Remember, we're not stuck. We are choosing to use premium per user as the maximum license we'll use for these videos. That processing is then done separately because we need that to be controlled and managed by a group of people. Might be the same people, but by putting it to one side, it makes it more of an action, like an active step. I'm going to do something with this as opposed to a passive where, oh, I accidentally did. Does that make sense? We need to be thinking active, not passive with what we're doing. So we've got our mind's made up. We know what we're doing. Once we've put together the idea of saying, well, we're going to have one per area, one per software suite, potentially you end up with 4 or 5 for a semantic model. And that's fine. The reason for the 4 or 5 is that might be used by this semantic model today, but it might be another semantic model tomorrow. We might have a new business case come up, which is what we want. We want that one source of truth used by multiple teams and businesses, areas of the business, sorry. If it's all is one big file, which is kind of where the DevOps piece pushes us towards, we build one report with a full semantic model for each report, you end up with a really inefficient, really heavy to manage, high cost of ownership solution. This way, we can target specific areas and say, right, we can upgrade this week, this month. We're going to review that. I can see it's slow for this refresh. Let's have a look at that. I can see we've got a new system coming in this area of the business. We need to replace these data flows with that, or this ETL process is going to have to be replaced. It'll move from being done in Power BI. It might be a direct database connection from now on. These are things that we might have. Again, we might have got a direct database connection, but it slows down the production database. So we have to switch to a data flow that's going to import from a view on the database server. We can do that. We can say, all right, we're going to create a workspace, create the data flows, doing the import of the views. We now have what we can use for reporting time and again. No fuss, no muss, as they say. Okay, it's fine. So we can see the life cycle that we're being expected to work through to get the results that we need. But that means multiple workspaces, which is then where, if we come back to here, this is where our deployment pipeline that we have, when we get the deployment pipeline, our deployment pipeline fails because it doesn't have the ability to really say, well, we want to have more workspaces going through different tiers. It just doesn't work that way. So you have a strand that can go from start to finish, but you don't have the ability to say, well, this is our data read, this is our data processing, this is our model builds, this is our that. Equally, if you're going to go down that route, you might end up with one of the areas that we've discussed in the past, having a centralized data model workspace, because potentially it's all your center of excellence's job to manage all those semantic models. So you might put them all together. There's not an intrinsically wrong way of working with that. Then you get to the point where we're discussing saying, well, where are all our visuals going to come from? So if we go back to our Power BI model here, okay, this is our model workspace that we've got, or it should be. Thought I'd click there. Okay. Going on, let's try again. If we go back to models here, there we go, okay. This is what you can suddenly see. So these are things coming in from one workspace. Okay. Oh, look, there's the calendar. There's no calendar in there. Because one of the calendar. I have to look at that as to where the calendar's coming from. Got a SharePoint link, which is where the list is coming for building the information about the specific events. And then we've got here. Okay, these are 4 reports that exist in this workspace. And they're in this workspace because public reports have to be in the same workspace as the semantic model. That's public reports. Outside public reports, they don't all have to be in the same model. Okay? So if we went to have a look here, show the impact across workspaces, you can see here, if we zoom in, 4 workspaces are already using content from this semantic model. All right? That's the child items. So we've suddenly already got to that point where this single tier that's going to build something at the end isn't going to work for us because we've got all these other workspaces in play. And that's why we would say, you know, you build a workspace structure for your apps and for your visualization layer based on the structure of your organization. So like we've done with this, we've ended up saying, well, we're going to build an app here based on our senior leadership team. So here's our business senior leadership team dashboard where they can see a summary of the Northeast. They've got this report pack here, this scorecard ready to go for them. They've got information on the Northeast food hygiene, and they've also got the park runs report for the Northeast. Everything is there, but you notice these aren't all from the same semantic model. But the basic plan is that our senior leadership team, I'll have to look into why that visual's not working. This senior leadership team is only having to go to one location to get all the information that they need to their fingertips. And from this read-only view that they have, one of the things they also have is the ability to bring in and add personal bookmarks. So there's some simple things to do to really help make people understand this is how you structure everything around, make sure it all works for you. Okay? Scorecards are definitely one of those things that we've done lots. It seems to be one of the most popular areas of our video content at the moment is scorecards. They are incredibly powerful and are based and rooted in the Pro license suite. You can go build as many scorecards as you want. You can tier things, as you can see, and you can also scale up and bring together from child items as well to say, right, this is what's happening. So here, for example, we said, well, the overall food hygiene here has gone down, but we see as well the number of restaurants has gone up. So we can you can infer one versus the other. It's important that we can get to this point and we start moving these things forward and we put together that kind of a strategy of data management across our organization. So DevOps will help you build the model, okay? You have to remember that. So if we go back to here, and we see here's the model. So this is the end point, isn't it? This is where DevOps will take us to here, okay? So we have this. Everything here is coming in to build that. That's the important thing. We've now got a consistent model that will build and develop and provide consistent analytic capability across our organization automatically. And we understand the components that go into it, what they are doing, and why they have been structured that particular way. It works. This is perfect. Then from there, data moves out. So if we come out of here again, build that, put that back in. Oh. Yeah. Oh. Yeah. It comes out. And it comes out to produce consistent report and visualization capabilities across the organization, not just tied to a single workspace, which is what you'll find you will do if you use these deployment pipelines the way they have been built. You will end up with one report that might show one, maybe two, maybe three pages, or not pages, reports and secondary reports of data in a single workspace, and that's all you'll do. And if you do that, it'll work, but you suddenly end up with 30, 50, 100 apps, and you've got, I'm in this team, I need to remember where 17 apps are, depending on what I need to do. And that's not the point of this. The point of this was about bringing that source of truth. I keep hearing that. Single source of truth, single pane of glass reporting. The way we do that is we bring everything, surface everything that you need to do your job into one app. If it is not in that app, why not? So what do you think? Okay. What's important is that you understand that the act of building and deploying content into Power BI is one side of the whole Power BI journey. The next side is actually how we allow people to get stuff out of Power BI. That whole insights gained from reporting capability. That's the point, isn't it? Fundamentally, doesn't matter what process you use. If people can't visualize information about what's happened in their organization, you failed. BI does not exist. BI is about producing content that is going to explain what has happened in the past within your organization. That's BI. Okay? If someone tells you differently, they're lying to you. We can get cute and we can get clever and we can say, right, we're going to put projections in, we're going to put budget information, we're going to put forecast information in. That's fine. We can do that. That's not a problem. But fundamentally, it all has to be built and based on what happened last week, what happened last month, what happened yesterday. It's not difficult, okay? And that's what we have to understand. We bring that data in a consistent, repeatable fashion so that we can produce reports and insight that are consistent and repeatable. And that way people know when I look at a report from our performance last month and I compare it to our performance last month from last month, I understand the difference. It would be nice if we've got a nice view to tell us and give that intelligence and that insight baked into the report. So, we've seen an increase of 5%. We've seen a decrease here. We've seen this gone that way. Our top product was, our least performing product was this. But the full weight of it is only powerful from that delivery into somebody's hands so they can say, right, I now understand what is going on across the organization. Without that, it's a waste of time. There's nothing. We're not doing our job. Yeah? I hope you don't mind that one. Kind of came very, we need to talk. It is vital to land these concepts for a successful IT deployment and IT managed environment of BI. You have to understand the importance of that delivery is far greater than the how do we get the data in. Yes, how we get the data in is vital. We need to make sure there is proper lineage. We need to make sure we understand exactly what is happening at each step with that data. But if it's not visualized, it's not relevant in terms of what you've done. It has to make that visualization. Those visualizations have to land in the right place. We have to think of how we can bring holistically everything that somebody needs for their job into that single app. If we aren't doing that, we aren't doing our jobs, and we are not serving the business the way that we should be serving them. For now, though, stay safe, take care, ta-da. One of the things you should do is tell us what your journey is, how you think we're doing. Is this something that you're thinking, what on earth is he spouting about? Why would he do that? Or are you thinking, do you know what? That actually makes a lot of sense, because you will be getting feedback from the business that will largely be asking for this. They care about the charts. They care about the tables of data. They don't care about how it came through. They don't care about the amazing Python script you wrote that's going to factor everything through and produce perfect forecasts. They care about what was there. And with forecasts, always be careful, because when the forecast is wrong, and they will be, whatever you've done is going to be wrong. Okay? So let us know down below what you think.